Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Did you stay up for it last night? Was it a debate or was it a debasement of American democracy? Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump had a messy 90-minute encounter, as personal as it was political. And if you thought it might be the end of Trump, you were wrong. Mark Urban has been looking at what we learned.
Donald Trump went into this second debate after a wretched weekend where his demeaning comments about women resulted in one poll putting Hillary Clinton 14 points ahead. She sought to capitalise on her advantage.
I said starting back in June that he was not fit to be president and commander-in-chief. And many Republicans and independents have said the same thing. What we all saw and heard on Friday was Donald talking about women, what he thinks about women, what he does to women. And he has said that the video doesn't represent who he is, but I think it's clear to anyone who heard it that it represents exactly who he is.
With Republican Party bigwigs melting away and facing widespread condemnation, Trump went onto the offensive, fighting on multiple fronts. First off, there was his attitude to women, where he called alleged sexual assaults, but he also attempted deflection, lambasting Hillary for breaches with her private email server and covering it up afterwards.
I didn't think I'd say this, but I'm going to say it, and I hate to say it. If I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation, because there has never been so many lies, so much deception. There has never been anything like it, and we're going to have a special prosecutor.
In this 90-minute onslaught, Trump interrupted her or the moderator 27 times. She interrupted just 3, and at moments she was on the ropes.
Nobody wants to see Hillary Clinton thrown in jail. But they do want to see Hillary Clinton held accountable for the emails and for the foundation. And it's the reason why Trump has done so well in this campaign, is that voters think that he is the only one that would actually hold Washington accountable.
As the debate moved past its first half hour, it allowed Trump to address a second perceived weakness on policy substance, where he tried to make the running on healthcare, tax and foreign affairs. But he ran into problems here too, disavowing remarks on Syria by his own vice presidential running mate.
He and I haven't spoken, and I disagree. I disagree.
You disagree with your running mate?
I think we have to knock out ISIS. Right now, Syria is fighting ISIS. We have people that want to fight both at the same time.
A lot of questions.
And this sense of a campaign in disarray means that he hadn't done enough to reassure the party grandees, who now wonder whether to let him hang out to dry.
I'm not sure that the Republican Party would ever publicly ditch him. The idea of abandoning the top of the ticket would really probably impact the down ticket just as badly. So they're trying to figure out what is the way they can triage this situation. As the House Speaker told his members this morning, it is important to figure out what's best for your district. He's not going to go out and defend Donald Trump anymore. He's not saying that they should either. But they don't necessarily think abandoning their nominee is going to help get Republicans out to the polls.
And here Trump has shown one more weakness. His contempt for the preppy GOP elite may delight his base, but even supporters concede that it could hurt him on polling day.
I definitely think it hurts him. There's no question about it. He needs to have as many people supporting him as possible. And the truth is, Donald Trump has never really been a Republican, in my view. He's an independent. He's always really been an independent.
After nearly 90 minutes of slugging it out, they were asked to name one thing they admired about the other. Hillary went first.
I respect his children. His children are incredibly able and devoted, and I think that says a lot about Donald.
That hit Trump where it hurts, with his lamentable attempts to improve his image with women, where, after the last few days, he has further to go than ever.
I don't believe that he will have improved among women because his apology wasn't well received. The comments that he made really bothered women in particular. And frankly, in that debate, Hillary Clinton is run as a champion of women, and that's gonna do well for her. What I do see happening is that Trump continues to improve among men, and you've got the biggest gender gap in the history of American politics.
Good night, everyone.
The debate hardly revived Trump's fortunes, but it did, his supporters argue, show his refusal to buckle under pressure.
Mark Urban. Well, this is clearly no ordinary American election, and Mr. Trump does not have the support of many natural Republicans, people like the writer P.J. O'Rourke. He's in the UK at the moment, speaking at an Intelligence Squared event this evening on US politics. He has declared his support for Hillary as the second worst option. I spoke to him earlier today. So does he think Donald Trump's presidential campaign is all but dead?
I hope so. It's been a long time coming, and I say I hope so. I would say yes, except that I have been absolutely wrong about everything for 18 months, and so I think I may hex it if I just say yes. Before this latest revelation of the inner Trump, the very thought, he was already slipping in the polls. Now the thing to keep one's fingers crossed about is Hillary has the electoral math on her side, and yet she remains dependent upon groups of voters that are famous for not voting. So will she be able to get them out? Of course, he's doing everything he can to help. So my guess is that yes, I don't think that his campaign is viable.
What proportion of good college-educated, professional people are backing Trump?
Very few, and I do know a couple. And generally speaking, when pressed, they will say, well, he was my 18th choice for Republican candidate. An office like the presidency of the United States has to have someone of character and judgment, and it's to the point for me simply that I would rather have someone whose judgment I don't think greatly of and whose character I find flawed, but she is someone, to my mind, she's wrong about everything, but she's wrong within the normal parameters of wrong. And it's a kind of wrong we've had before. It's a wrong we can endure. It's a wrong we can recur. With him, who knows? And I think that a phenomenon like Trump is part of an underlying frustration with the modern state that has shown itself in all sorts of populist outbreaks around the world. Trump, a rather comic version of that, Marine Le Pen, rather less comic. And if you want truly tragic, Putin too is a populist. I mean, Brexit is a sort of example of it. So is the rejection by the Colombians of this peace treaty.
Totally.
So, you know, to what extent it's a comfort we're not alone. It's idiocy, you know.
What do you think of the Republican establishment? I mean,
cowards.
Is there anything they could have done? Anything they could have done to stop him, for one, and two, I mean, firstly, a lot of them lined up to endorse him, and then were apparently shocked at this this tape of sexual predatorship. Did you find anything surprising in that tape? Did you get a new insight into the real character of Donald Trump?
No, I just got sick to my stomach. To be perfectly fair to Donald Trump, I mean, you know, it was a weak field. It may have looked good from afar, but in point of fact, each of the candidates turned out to be lukewarm. They all stuck it out, dividing up the good sense vote and leaving the poor sense vote to be taken by Trump. Then, not universally, but they lined up pretty quickly to endorse him, and then did Rick in Casablanca. I'm shocked that this man would say such things.
It's difficult. Do you think impartial broadcasters and impartial newspapers should try and cover this election in the way they would normally cover an election between two candidates?
Can't be done. Can't be done. It's just too silly, you know. I mean, yeah, I think we just have to endeavor to do our best to find that best obtainable version of the truth, and we can do no better. But I mean, to keep a straight face through some of this, please, you know, we're human.
Would you use the phrase American politics is broken? I mean, it's always had its difficulties, hasn't it? But this is...
Politics is always a mess. Are we in a particularly silly moment? Is there danger in that silliness? All of the above, yes. But boy, you know, democracy is always a bit of a tightrope walk. You know, it's a scary way to govern ourselves. You know, and the scariest part of it all, of course, being the famous Churchill quote that it's worse than everything except everything else that's been tried. You know? So, you know, you don't want to fall off that tightrope. You know?
Thanks very much.
Very welcome.
PJ O'Rourke.
Now, there was a lot of anticipation in advance of the second presidential debate in the US in the early hours this morning, and it didn't disappoint. Donald Trump called his opponents the devil, which suggested above all that he does have a keen sense of proportion. As I said, always handy in a president. Hillary Clinton may indeed have questions of her own to answer, but the basic truth is that the leader of the free world could soon be a man who talks about women like this.
You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the I can do anything.
Carol, locker room chat, he said.
Do you know, I want to smack him. He doesn't understand.
I don't think you're alone in that, necessarily.
He doesn't understand that it's just because he's filthy rich and there are a lot of stupid women out there that he's allowed to get away with that.
It was such a shock when that tape came out.
Well,
No one had any idea he might have been like that.
The language, it is appalling. And his wife must be very worried because he said he doesn't fancy women over 35. Well, his wife is 46. But imagine if you were married to him and hearing your husband talk like that about women. I mean, it is just appalling. And it says, you know, people say, you know, he said it 11 years ago or something. When someone talks like that, it tells you everything about the kind of person they are. It doesn't just tell you about the language they use. It tells you how they see the world and how they see people in the world. And he's a revolting character. I mean, I was watching this last night and thinking, could anyone imagine Barack Obama ever speaking like that? You might not agree with his politics, you might think he hasn't done a great job, but you know he's not that kind of man. And Trump, God help us all. I mean,
Bonnie, did you watch it? What did you make of...
I watched it.
It wasn't a disaster for him. I mean, looked at objectively, that could have been the end of his campaign, and he probably is still on his feet after it. Would you agree with that?
Why isn't it the
Well,
end of his campaign?
he's got the IV has been taken out of his campaign, and the oxygen mask is off. But it's a very complicated thing. One of the things that we're seeing in the United States is for the last 20 or 30 years, there's been a rapid industrialization of the country, and it's happening in this country as well. We have a demographic that American citizens of European descent, particularly German, Italian, and English, who traditionally, when there was a recession, the people who lost out were African American men and unmarried women. Now, these guys are losing out. So they're very aware that this is the last chance for them to actually express themselves before the great change is coming over America and this country. So Donald Trump represents that. What Donald Trump is doing, which is, you know, diabolically brilliant, is that he's taken reality TV, he's taken the age of information, which is what we're in now, and he's used it and he's fashioned, Boris Johnson does this too, he fashions buzzwords. So what he was doing last night, he didn't have to bring policy on the stage. Hillary brought policy on the stage and she won. But what Donald brought was buzzwords. He used words like put her in jail. He used words like liar. And he stalked around. This is the dog whistle to his base. But these people are not Republicans. These people are Trumptonians who will be voting Republican. And what's going to happen, I do believe Hillary's going to win, but what's going to happen is the shambles that's going to be left behind with the Republican Party and with the political process in America is going to take a long time to repair.
Can I bring you in? It seems to me that Trump he showed himself to be a candidate prepared to go to places that I can't remember any other presidential candidate in history being willing to go. And therefore, I guess you can argue that it's another example of the nasty politics that we're beginning to see. Do you see it like that, or do you view it as a bit of an aberration?
I see it exactly like that. I won't repeat what I was saying before the break, but whoever wins is going to play a key role in leading NATO, resolving the problems in Syria, Iraq, North Africa, relationships with China and all the problems that as China becomes more powerful. I won't go on. And the only debate you have on nationwide television is about his appalling and dreadful misogynist remarks about women and Hillary's indiscreet use of private emails, which has driven the FBI up the wall. And Hillary, to be fair, tries to bring in policy, and nobody's remotely interested. I meet a lot of communist Chinese officials, not a lot, but recently I've met quite a few.
Do you? Really? That is a story.
Communist Chinese officials and junior ministers, and I try to think, as they think democracy is an absurd way of running a country. They can't understand why we allow serious things to be run in this way. And normally I would die in the ditch, literally, if I had to. I had to fight for it for democracy. But right now, it's quite difficult to defend this unless we get back to a more sane type of democracy. I was saying before, in America, both these candidates are unpopular with the nice, ordinary Americans that you and I probably meet. Well, most Americans just despair of who they vote for. They're going to vote for Hillary, probably, because Trump is such a
Clive, can I bring you in a
disgusting
second?
man.
But first, I just want to, for those who didn't see it, a quick reminder of what happened last night.
I apologize for those words, but it is things that people say. But what President Clinton did, he was impeached, he lost his license to practice law, he had to pay an $850,000 fine to one of the women, Paula Jones, who's also here tonight. And I will tell you that when Hillary brings up a point like that, and she talks about words that I said 11 years ago, I think it's disgraceful, and I think she should be ashamed of herself, if you want to know the truth.
When I hear something like that, I am reminded of what my friend Michelle Obama advised us all. When they go low, you go high.
Clive, what did you make of it? Or what do you make of him more generally?
Well, it's extraordinary, isn't it? When FIFA decided to give the World Cup to Qatar, it was beyond parody, because that would be an example of a country, or a ludicrous decision. Let's think of a hot country that has no population or any interest in football. So you can't parody it. Trump is like that. You think, oh, what is the worst possible person who could be put up as a candidate? He's not a politician. He's not even a self-made man. He inherited a lot of money. He's not particularly beautiful. He's not particularly charming. He's not any good at politics. And I think you're crediting him with a little bit more cleverness there. With those,
not cleverness
coming up with these buzzwords and these.
No.
I think that's all he's got.
No, Clive, listen.
No, I'm not accusing you of being a Trump supporter.
No, but it's very important, and I think, with respect to Ken, he implied something that I think is the reason why people are revolt. People have, I'm totally not for Trump in any way, but we have to listen to what people are saying.
No, but there should be somebody putting those views forward who's a sensible candidate.
Something sensible as defined by you and me. Yeah. But the fact is that if we don't understand that people are afraid, they're in pain, and they will turn to a guy who is a billionaire, could care less about these people, and when he loses, he's going to turn into a media mogul and make more money. We need to listen to people who say, I can't articulate what bothers me, but you're gonna hear me. And if this guy is the person who's gonna do it, if he's gonna stalk behind a woman like this, if he's gonna sniffle, if he's gonna come on air, you're gonna listen to me. So I think people need to sit down and listen to the fact that people have things they have to say, and we have to hear them.
On that was very eloquent, and we could go on all night listening to that kind of comment. Sadly, we don't have all night, and I'm afraid we have to move on.
I've been getting